Hello, it's Professor Oats, here with a video that is not Smash Brothers, actually. Yeah, I play Hearthstone. Not insanely serious, but I know a bit and I have opinions, so I decided to put them in video form. It also lets me test out screen caps and webcam stuff. I actually learned and downloaded OBS about 5 minutes before recording this, so it'll let me do other stuff in the future. Sorry the layout is trash right now, I made it in literally 5 minutes. If you're not about this and you prefer Smash, stay tuned, as I'll come up with more stuff for that game soon. Anyway, the new expansion. Journey to Ungoro. My first thought is, whoa. This is easily Blizzard's most adventurous expansion yet, and they introduced some completely new mechanics, and some cards with absurd power levels. Quests themselves are crazy unique, they will show up in your first turn, which is new. They haven't made anything like that in the Hearthstone engine yet, except for a few tavern brawls, so they're really trying new stuff out. And the effects are kinda powerful. Doesn't really feel like power creep since the new cards are strong in different ways than previous cards, but still, whoa. So, I'll be looking at all these cards and giving brief impressions, going class by class, starting as you can see with Druid. And let's start with the quest, Jungle Giants. The condition is summon 5 minions with 5 or more attack. And if you get it, you get Barnabas. Barnabas is a 5 mana 8/8, and you'll see those stats a lot. Battlecry, reduce the cost of minions in your deck to 0. It's a beast, but that's not super important for this. The effect is the super important part. Every minion in your deck, when you draw it, will cost 0. And if you think that's insane, it is. But let's consider the deck you'd need to make to get this out reliably and consistently. So, you could run Jade and just ramp into 5+ attack, but if you're alive by the time you get to an 8/8 Jade, by my count 5 to 8 on the Jade counter and Aya would complete the quest, you've probably won anyway at that point. And Jade minions, at that cost, are actually bigger than Barnabas by then. And not playing Jade Idol on turn 1, to play the quest on turn 1 would slow down your Jade ramp, as I like to call it. So I don't see synergy there. 0 mana minions makes me think combos, and we've got that Aviana, Malygos, Kun the Forgotten King combo Druid that's really big right now. So that won't work entirely either, because there are moments where you draw Malygos and then play Barnabas, and he's stuck at 9 mana. Kun the Forgotten King can replenish your mana if he's at 0 mana and fix the situation, but the current Kun combo Druid doesn't even run 5 minions with 5+ attack. You've got Kun, Aviana, who's leaving for Wild, Ancient of War, who I only usually see 1, but you definitely run 2 in a deck like this, and Thaurissan, who is also leaving for Wild. You'll also want some Cycle minions to get the new combo pieces, and Azure Drake is leaving, also doesn't have 5 attack. Gadget's and Auctioneer doesn't have 5 attack. So I think this is bound to be a completely new kind of deck, which I'm really excited for. My hope, though I don't think it'll happen, is that the Ragers get competitive use, Magma Rager, Ice Rager, that kind of thing. Since 3 mana for 5 attack is probably the cheapest way to build up for that quest. Who knows, but I hope to see some interesting builds experimented with. Next up, because I wrote everything out of order, because I'm dumb, Earthen Scales, which is a pretty cool card. 1 mana spell, give a friendly minion +1/+1, and gain armor equal to its attack. So it gives a variable amount of armor depending on the minion you get. Bigger is better, but you don't have to do that. You can put it on an early minion and make that early tempo swing, trade in 1 for 2, and that's pretty cool. Or you can help Violet Teacher out an Egg Druid, because Blizzard seems to be pushing that a bit too. So that'll be a 1/1, and a 1/1 boost, and some armor. It doesn't seem like an unfair card, feels like you can use it in a lot of situations, and it feels powerful enough. I love the design, and I think the card is pretty good. Next up is Elder Longneck, a 3 mana 5/1 beast. Battlecry, if you're holding a minion with 5 or more attack, adapt. Now, this effect will come off semi-consistently. Really consistently in the Quest Druid, because you're going to be running a lot of minions with 5 attack. And in Beast Druid, it also works pretty well, because you've got Savage Combatant, you've got Stranglethorn Tiger, you've got Menagerie Warden, all of which have 5 attack. So Elder Longneck will get his effect off pretty consistently in that too. Anywho, let's look at the adapts, see how well they are for him. Now, if you don't know, adapt is you get a choice of 3, kind of like Discover, and you get these 10 effects to choose from, or 3 of them. So your chance of getting any specific effect you want is around 30%. Though, just like a coin flip, you might get the thing you don't want 5,000 times in a row, and that's just random chance. So the effects are Divine Shield, which would be amazing on a 5/1, 3 attack, which is let's just do it in order. Divine Shield, 3 attack, Wind Fury, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, Death Rattle, summon 2/1s, this is great, Taunt, Poisonous, plus 3 health, which is great on most adapt minions. Volcanic Might, +1/+1, and Stealth for a turn. So, let's quickly say, if you get the plus 3 health, that is a 3 mana 5/4, which is awesome. And Divine Shield and Death Rattle are also awesome. Or you get Stealth and it's a Shadow Rager. Or basically anything else turns it into a green Magma Rager, which is awful, but oh well. And Beast Druid wasn't really looking for this card in particular. It doesn't hurt at all. If this card is mediocre or great, really depends on the deck list. But I expect to see it in most Quest Druids and some Beast Druids. I like it. Next up, Evolving Spores. Boop. Evolving Spores is a 4 mana spell that adapts all of your minions. It's a bit more evidence that they're pushing Egg Druid this expansion. 4 mana is a fair cost if you hit enough minions. If you don't, this card is cheeks. But the adapt effect itself is really volatile. It might be bad even if you have a bunch of minions. So let's say you get the right adapts on the right minions. It's better Bloodlust. It could be lethal. It could clear the board with Poisonous. That's insane. Or one of your effects are like Crap, and Poisonous on a 0 attack minion. Then you don't get Poisonous on your 1 attack minions. You give your 1 attack minions like plus 3 health. And this card seems really crucially dependent on RNG to succeed. And I don't like that, from a design standpoint. It can be very powerful. I think it'll only be seen in Egg Druid, if there. And the effect is really variable. Could be great, could be terrible. Depends on how you roll the dice. Next up is Giant Anaconda, which is a 7 mana 5/3. Yep, that's correct. The stats are awful. Death Rattle. Summon a minion from your hand with 5 or more attack. Now, this minion could be anything. It could be Tyrantus. It could be Deathwing. It could be Rag, except not Rag because he's leaving. It could be Ancient of War, except you really don't want to do that because without playing it, it's a 5/5, not a 5/10 taunt. Yeah, I don't like this card. The Death Rattle, for one thing, is way too slow. It's interesting, but it won't be in many decks. Or any decks. Plus 3 health hurts, because, okay. Let's say you play this card on 7, and they play a Hex, and they're up 4 mana, and you're sad. Or they kill it with a Lightning Bolt, and they've used a 1 mana card to kill a 7-drop. And then they Hex the thing that comes out, your hand is removed of value, and then they just run you over. That's... Or they play a 2/6 taunt and then ignore it, and you have to trade this thing in, and it doesn't die, and then you don't get a big minion out, and you've played 5 attack on 7, and just... It doesn't seem good against some face decks, some control decks. I don't like it. It's just bad. I hope to be proven wrong, though. Next up, Living Mana. Transform your mana crystals into 2/2 minions. These ones. Mana Trent. They're kind of cute. Death Rattle, gain an empty mana crystal. So... that means on turn 5, you will use up your mana crystals and get 5 2/2s, which is 10/10 worth of stats, which is awesome. But let's think about this. The 10/10 worth of stats is a range so that Thalnos Fan, Holy Nova, and Volcanic Potion can clear it. Those are 5, 5, and 3, so at best you broke even. Unluckily, if someone plays Devolve, you automatically lose the game, since the mana crystals won't come back. What's more, I predict Devolve will be really, really common, as Shaman not only looks good this set, but the 5 mana 8/8s running around don't want to be turned into Gnomish Inventors, so it's going to be good on other decks too. In addition, if your little mana dudes do stick, conceivably if they weren't empty mana crystals, you could trade one of them in and then Savage Roar the rest, but as of now, if all of them stick around, you will have 2 mana for Savage Roar, which is 3 mana, so you'll need to use an Innervate or a coin, which you've kept, which, that's not good. That is really not good. But it's 10/10 on turn 5, which I guess could be cool depending on what board clears people are running. So, I'm not convinced this card will be good, but people will experiment with it. It seems tailored to Egg Druid, which I'm not even sure it makes the cut in that. Anyway, here comes a card that I actually like, Shell Shifter. It is a 4 mana choose 1, transform into a 5/3 with Stealth, or a 3/5 with Taunt. A 5/3 with Stealth on turn 4 is really cool, and the other form, which is essentially Sen'jin Shieldmaster, not run in Standard, but it is helpful when it's needed, like against a Pirate Warrior, for example. And you pick and choose when to do what. That's cool. It's a bit weaker than Druid of the Flame when hit by Fandral Effect, because both are 5/5s and one costs more. Stealth Taunt is, kinda redundant. But, Fandralless, it pulls its weight really nicely. It is a beast when transformed, so Mark of Yasharj and Menagerie Warden will work on this card, and work consistently thanks to Stealth. It does not activate Elder Longneck, though, so if you run this in Quest Druid, prepare for a little bit of anti-synergy there. But I think it's a really strong card for both Quest Druid and Beast Druid. We'll see if Elder Longneck and Shellshifter push each other out of their respective builds, but I think they can both work in it. Next up, Tortolan Forager. It's a 2-drop that can be played before you start dropping 5-attack minions. That either gives you a cheap 5-attack to play on curve, it gives you a random minion, and it has to have 5 or more attack. So, let's say it gives you an Elder Longneck, and you've got a Savage Combatant in your hand. Boom, play the Elder Longneck, you get this nice curve laid out. Or, you get something huge, and you have Elder Longneck in your hand, it makes it so he will always get the Adapt. And that's on curve, and that's really good. So, yeah, it just sets up future turns, it fulfills the quest, it fills the hand up, it makes a body. It's nice. I like this card. And next up, we have the legend, Tyrantus. Kind of reading these cards out of order. I said that already. Might be. It's a 10-mana, 12/12, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. So, it's not messed up too hard by Devolve, which I already said might be pretty common. It is really slow, though. If you get to turn 10 against aggro, they will ignore it and keep going face. The dream is pulling this out with Anaconda, which I don't think anyone will run. After they're done experimenting anyway, people won't run Anaconda. Or you reduce its cost to 0 with Barnabas, that's pretty cool. But if you draw it before then, you'll never reduce it. So, I think you still want Ancient of War in, every situation. A 5/10 and a 12/12 will trade into around the same amount of minions. And I don't think you're going to be pushing face if you're playing something this slow. You're probably going to be reacting, you know? Anyway, the dream is summoning it for 0, copying it with Menagerie Warden. That is insane value, but do I think it'll happen often? No. And in most cases, yeah, in almost every case but Menagerie Warden 0 cost, I would rather have Ancient of War. Also, bug just flew in my nose. Okay. Also, the epic plant card Rogue gets completely runs this over, because can't be targeted by battle cries isn't written on the card. Also, the any poisonous adapt effect, they can get poisonous and just trade into this thing. And the 2-drop Snail, if you don't have Wrath handy. 2-drop Snail, it's a neutral card, 1/2 taunt poisonous. I think it's really good, but yeah, I think this card's bad. Tyrantus, that is. Next up, and I'm not huge on this card just because it's adapt with a body, but it's not a bad card. Verdant Longneck. It is a 5/4 beast for 5, Battlecry adapt. Now quickly, let's run down the adapts for it. Boop. Divine Shield is awesome, Death Rattle Spores is awesome, and +3 health are awesome. You get a 5/7, 5/4 Divine Shield. That's all pretty good. And you have a high chance of getting one of those effects in your Discover. But if you don't get that, +1/+1 is alright. Taunt, Poisonous Wind Fury, and can't be targeted by spells are all kind of mediocre. Stealth is a straight-up worse Stranglethorn Tiger on a class minion, which just shouldn't happen. And +3 attack, you have made a Salty Dog, which is garbage. What you want is for this minion to stick around for Menagerie Warden on turn 6. And I'm not convinced that the possible power is worth the lack of consistency. It probably is, because you'll get one of his better effects, but when you don't, you're better off running Stranglethorn Tiger. And if this deck is more about consistency than power level, you might see, a little bit of both, just Tiger, just this. It's debatable that a neutral minion's better than this minion, and I don't like that. I hope I'm proven wrong, though. Anyway, my thoughts on Druid overall. So, the quest and support build both look really fun. They're very powerful in the right builds, but not especially splashable onto existing Druid decks, so we'll be seeing some brand new stuff. Except for Jade Druid. Jade Druid lost these cards. This is not running Jade Druid. This is their hard removal, which, I don't know, that doesn't really matter. Well, I mean, it does, but whatever. And Raven Idol. None of these are crucial in Jade Druid, so that deck will still be around. And there will be a lot of competition between Jade Druid, Quest builds, Beast Druid, Egg Druid. I'm pretty sure Cthulhu Druid has gone from the meta forever. Which build will prevail? I don't know. But I hope it's not Jade, because I really like playing Fatigue decks, and that's like a 100-0 matchup. Okay, so next up is Hunter. Starting again with the quest, we have the Marsh Queen, which requires you to play, not summon, 7 1-cost minions, and rewards you with Queen Carnassa. Yet another 5-mana 8/8. Battlecry, shuffle 15 raptors into your deck. These aren't any raptors. Carnassa's Brood. They're a 1-mana 3/2 Battlecry, draw a card. So, that's really good. And your deck just becomes these, auto-cycling swarm thing. So you play one, and then another, and another, and another. And it's pretty insane. Yeah, that's nuts. So the deck seems pretty straightforward. You stuff the deck full of 1-drops and then pump them out. But the downside is that when you top deck a normal 1-drop instead of a Cycling Raptor later, you don't have much of a turn, since your hand will definitely be used up fast if you're only playing small minions. Except not really, you'll see soon. Plus, you have to play the quest on 1, denying your 1-drops their most impressive turn. Despite these flaws, I think the quest deck will be awesome, if a little bit mindless. We'll see. It'll probably be really common, because it's a relatively easy deck to build, in my head anyway. Just a lot of 1-drops. Next is the Legendary. Scrolling up. Next is the Legendary, Swamp King Dread. After your opponent plays a minion, attack it. It's a 7-mana 9/9, which those stats are really impressive. The concept of attacking minions as they come out is great, and this shuts down a lot of existing ideas, like Fandral into a large bunch of spells, or Auctioneer into a large bunch of spells. So once you play this, it would stop them from playing those cards. And a 9/9 for 7 is no joke. People were originally joking that Pit Snake would be a very hard counter, but it's super uncommon, so you know. But Poisonous is actually a huge problem for Dread. There's a decent chance that any adapt minion will remove Dread, plus the neutral 2-mana Poisonous Taunt Snail that I was talking about in the other class. Yeah, that's really good. That thing is fantastic. And if that card is common at all and constructed, this card will be trash. So, right now he seems pretty inconsistent to me. Next up is Dinomancy. Now, I'll just say this card is insane. 2-mana spell, your hero power becomes give a beast +2/+2. I appreciate Blizzard for making a card like this, despite the power level, since it pushes Hunter towards control builds. You can actually impact the board now! If you draw the second Dinomancy after activating it first, it is confirmed that it will refresh your new hero power, but not power it up any further, so it's not like Shadow Form, giving you 3 damage instead of 2. Which I like. Most likely you'll be running tracking to find the first copy and or mill the second, because running 2 is worth it. Because you want to get this quickly and consistently, because this will give you, like, good trades every single turn you play a beast. Not only that, but there's some synergy, like, Angry Chicken buff actually matters now. Rat Pack gets at least 4 rats. It's a new threat that definitely puts Hunter in a good spot, and it means people will try running decks that aren't only based around the quest. There'll be some mid-range Hunter thrown in there. Next is Stampede, which is actually incredible. 1-mana spell. Yes, 1 mana. Each time you play a beast this turn, add a random beast to your hand, which means if that beast is cheap, you play that and play another random beast. It is a lock and load, but lock and load could give you minions. This will not give you spells. So it's more consistent lock and load for a lower cost, and guess what? We have a deck full of 1-drop beasts. So that's really good. Yeah, remember when I said 1-drop Hunter would run out of a hand? Nope. With all the beast synergy being introduced, random beasts aren't even that terrible. Like, imagine drawing a Tundra Rhino off this, and then the next turn playing that and 5 3/2 charge raptors. That is 15 damage to the face. And if you played Stampede and a bunch of Karnassus Brood, your hand gets like... your hand completely fills up. Yeah, it only costs 1. If this goes off twice, it's ridiculous. And the Hunter quest promoting a swarm of tiny minions, it will be more than 2 draws. Trust me. This card is borderline broken. Next up, Raptor Hatchling. It is a 1-mana 2/1 that shuffles a 1-mana 4/3, this guy, also costs 1, into your deck. Boop. I think it's a little bit overhyped, but the card is good. 2/1 on turn 1 isn't as much board presence as Fiery Bat, Alley Cat, Argent Squire, or most pirates thanks to patches. And while a 1-mana 4/3 is awesome, it won't be drawn right away. If you're running only a few 1-drops to try and draw into the 4/3 with the next card I talk about, which you can actually see here if you want spoilers, you won't be completing the quest with that few 1-drops, so you have less incentive to run it in the first place. And you can't pull it from the deck with Desert Camel, as that card's moving to Wild, which I really wanted to try. I love Desert Camel decks, so that's kind of sad for me. Top decking it instead of Karnassus Brood will also not be great after you've completed the quest. But if you draw it before the quest is complete, it's really good. I see it being run in Quest Hunter. Not because it's better than other Hunter 1-drops, you'll just be needing a lot of 1-drops, and here's another with a unique effect. Cool, not insanely powerful, I like it, a bit. Next up is Tol'vir Warden, which I was talking about, which is essentially quest support. Drawing 2 cards is something Hunter needs, but since the cards are 1-drop, they'll be used up right away, and you'll be back into top deck mode. Albeit top deck mode where you draw fewer 1-drops, so that's nice. That's what I thought before seeing the other cards. Stampeding means this card sets up at least 2 draws, which is like a hefty hand refill. And it's still made to complete the Hunter quest, so in context, it's really good. Out of context, a 3/5 for 5 is pretty weak. It will definitely see play though. And next is Terror Scale Stalker, a 3/3 that activates a buddy's death rattle. It's the same effect as Princess Huhuran, and having 3 minions with the same effect is way more consistent than 1. This card's low cost allows for some neat combos with Dinomancy and Rat Pack on 7, so you summon that, Rat Pack, and 4 1/1s. If they play like a Flame Strike, you still have 4 1/1s, 4 more 1/1s. Like, that's pretty cool. You can play it on the same turn as you play High Main, which is something that the Princess couldn't do. And I think it makes it better than the Legendary in my eyes. But Hunter wasn't gifted this set with too many powerful death rattles. The problem in the past with N'Zoth Hunter was that when the N'Zoth turn came down, earlier it was slower, and later they might be threatening lethal, and without Infested Tauren, you won't be summoning any taunts. Infested Tauren itself is bad, so you have nothing to immediately impact the board. This has the same problem. If you could use this on the Priest 4-drop with Taunt, or the Paladin buff spell, that would be broken. But, right now it's fair. Yeah. However, you can do cool stuff like play Stranglethorn on not Stranglethorn, Savannah Highmane on 7, you play this on 6, and then Tundra Rhino, and then have everything go face. The 4 2/2s that come out could all charge, you get an empty board, and Tundra Rhino's around. And if it's around, you get Call of the Wild on turn 9, and that's so much damage. Oh, okay. But that's kind of situational. Will it see play? I don't know. There's so many good Hunter 3-drops already, and this one doesn't set up into Houndmaster on curve like other ones because it's not a beast. So, I have no clue. This could prompt a Death Rattle Hunter, but Crackling Razormaw. This card is really good. It is a 3/2, 4/2, and Battlecry Adapt a Friendly Beast. This is awesome. Adapt is slightly better than a +1 to me. I already said that. And it's even better when the other minion's already been out a turn. So you have you can adapt a +3 and trade into something like a Semi-Power Overwhelming, or you can make it poisonous and make it an even better Power Overwhelming. Anyway, with all these 1-drop beasts, Alley Cat, for example, if they don't clear it immediately, boom, value. It is consistently a better Shattered Sun Cleric, in both cost and tribe, because it's a beast. Nothing much more to say, this card is amazing. Next up, Grievous Bite. This is a cool card. I really like the design. It's slightly less powerful than Power Shot, but for 1 less mana, and since it scales amazingly with spell damage, it gives Hunter another reason to try out Thalnos. Honestly, it's essentially Power Shot that does less damage to adjacent minions for 1 less mana. That's really good. It gives you a reason to try out Thalnos, which might synergize with a Death Rattle build. Not broken, definitely good. Doesn't fit obviously into the quest deck, and it promotes creativity. I love it. And now, Jeweled Macaw. Web Spinner's back! Before Stampeding, this card was a nice way for Hunter not to run out of a hand, and a power boost that it needed. It fits well with the quest deck. It refills your hand, because you have so many 1-drops. Boom, hand. But after Stampede, I keep calling it Stampeding. After Stampede, this card guarantees that Stampede will get a ton of value. At least be Arcane Intellect. So, yeah. This little guy's kind of broke. Expect to see him a lot. So, final thoughts on Hunter. They managed to introduce a lot of really powerful cards, fast cards, and none of them promote Face Hunter, which, from a design standpoint, is really cool on Blizzard's part. Good job. The quest decks look obviously strong, and the Death Rattle build might have some subtle potential to be explored. Both could bring Hunter back into the limelight once optimized. If Quest Hunter becomes a thing, expect to see a lot of Volcanic Potion in Mage, because he'll take out an entire Raptor Swarm. But regardless, it'll be strong. And Stampede tackles Hunter's biggest weakness in running out of steam. I can also make Stampeding Kodo jokes, which is really important to me. As far as cards they lost, let's check. Quick Shot, which is very important in Face Hunter. So that being removed, again, pushes to more of this mid-range control where you won't run out of a hand in 2 seconds. Bear Trap, which it's been kind of used, and Secret Hunter got one less tool, but Secret Hunter really didn't get any support this expansion, and it was kind of dying on it was kind of dying last expansion, so yeah, that deck's dead. King's LX a cool card, sad to see it go. Desert Camel's a cool card, sad to see it go, but they weren't really necessary in any builds, so Hunter's all new, baby. And for our third class, and the final one this video, we have Mage. Let's start with the quest, which is probably the craziest of them. It brings Freeze Mage back in a bizarre way. If you cast 6 spells that didn't start in your If you cast 6 spells that didn't start in your deck, you open the way gate and get Time Warp, a 5-mana spell that gives you an extra turn. So that's amazing. They haven't really done anything like this before. And unlike other quests, this quest is not meant to be completed right away. It's meant to be completed whenever, and Time Warp will also not be played right away. So you can wait for your combo pieces, or until your ice block is popped to give yourself that extra turn. Completing the quest is certainly doable by turn 10, thanks to Babbling Book, Kabbalist Tome, maybe you'll even see Burgly Bully. Also, a ton of new cards that we'll talk about shortly. And the payoff is amazing. Let's run down a few turn 10 plays that instantly lethal someone. So, you wait for Ice Block, you summon your Molten Giants and your Arcane Giants, play a Time Warp, 32 damage without doing anything on the second turn. Time Warp Leroy Arcane Giants, 6 plus 6 plus 8 plus 8 is 28 damage, and just do a Frostbolt on your next turn, and that's lethal. Alexstrasza before the Time Warp, then Time Warp and Evolved Kobold, and then chuck a few spells. Portions of these combos, plus Pyroblast or Fireballs on the second turn, or, if you're about the memes, Sorcerer's Apprentice twice, Molten Reflection, which you can see here, twice, and Time Warp. Next turn, you play Antonidas and deal infinite damage because the Fireballs cost 0. And they give you Fireballs, which cost 0, and so on and so on. It almost seems like this is more consistent than the previous Freeze Mage, not the Antonidas Exodia thing, the other combos. But setting it up, you are drawing random spells between turns 1 and 10. Will it be better or worse than the Freeze Mage of old? I think it will, but we'll see. It will take a while to optimize because there's so many things you can do for your win condition. If it's busted enough, Kazan Mystic might finally see play again. Now, continuing the trend of crazy class quests with disappointing class legendaries, we have Pyros! True to its Phoenix artwork, it rises from the ashes back into your hand, transforming from a 2-mana 2/2, which is bad, into a 6-mana 6/6, which is bad, into a 10-mana 10/10, which is bad. So, yeah, it's bad. The fact that the card draws itself is not enough to make it usable, and the elemental tag isn't amazing, as there are other higher tempo elementals that you can simply draw into with Arcane Intellect. Most of them neutral, which is kind of odd, but we'll talk about that later. They could have made the 10-mana Pyros do something cool. I would have loved that, but no. Next card. Meteor. Deal 15 damage to a minion and 3 damage to adjacent ones. Flame Lance Deluxe. Honestly, comparing this to Flame Lance, 1 extra mana cost for 7 more damage on 1 minion seems nuts. But at a point, damage a minion spells kind of max out. On most minions, 8 and 15 damage are the exact same thing, and it becomes Assassinate. But the 3 damage on either side is awesome. It makes this card into like a funky bootleg Flame Strike. I think it'll see play, but 15? Really? That's a little bit overkill. Thank goodness Wrathguard is being rotated out. I would hate for someone to be on the receiving end of a meteor to the face. Next up is Primordial Glyph. You can see it here. It's kind of cool looking. 2 mana. Discover a spell, reduce its cost by 2. This is awesome. You have the flexibility of finding the spell you need, and it doesn't cost extra. Let's say you need a little bit more oomph. You find Kabbalist Tome, and suddenly, boom! You have Kabbalist Tome without running it in your deck. Get 3 things. You will probably run Kabbalist Tome in your deck because there's spells that they'll complete the quest, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Also, not only impacts the quest, but it can find itself and impact the quest twice as much for no additional cost. Before the quest synergy, it's good because you can use it in a lot of situations. After the quest synergy, it will be in every quest deck times 2, for sure. There's no question in my mind. Also, in Wild Tempo Mage, it'll work great with Flamewaker, but that thing's gone, so no. And next up is Mana Bind. When your opponent casts a spell, add a copy to your hand that costs 0. It's a pretty cool secret, and it kind of is comparable to Counterspell in my mind. If you block a Flame Strike, you're up 4 mana. If you let it happen, and then you get 1 for 0, you're up 4 mana. But you probably aren't in the situation where the Flame Strike is as useful for you as it was for them. Let's say you've got a giant board, they Flame Strike, then you use the secret, and you get that Flame Strike, and now they know you have a 0-cost Flame Strike. Their board was already empty, and they're sure as hell not going to play into it for you, so I think it's worse than Counterspell. This card might see play in the recent Secret Mage as a one-of with Counterspell, just because they need variety and more secrets, but I don't see it in Quest Mage, unless we keep seeing Kazakus, because 0 mana 10-cost potion is ridiculous. That thing was not meant to be that cheap. The one problem with that is we don't know how often Kazakus is going to be in the meta, because he was in basically every Reno deck, but Reno's gone, and we don't know if Reno decks will stay as Highlander decks or kind of like morph into like fatigue decks with Kazakus, but either way, we won't see him nearly as often. And Molten Reflection. Copy a friendly minion. Choose a friendly minion, summon a copy of it. This is cool with Apprentice for the Mimi Exodia Mage I alluded to earlier, and it copies Leroy for Fun Burst. It means Reno Mage can imitate Reno Lock somewhat, although Reno Lock and Reno Mage won't exist anymore, but whatever. And it provides a worse echo of Medivh for any attempted Echo Mages. It seems too weak and costly to be a staple, unless someone finds a specific new combo for it. I don't like it. And next we have Steam Surger. It is a 5/4 elemental for 4. Battlecry, if you played an elemental last turn, add a Flame Geyser to your hand. Now, you'll get that effect pretty consistently because there is a neutral Tar dude. He's a 3-drop, I'll talk about him in the neutral section. He's really good, you'll probably see him often, and he will set up this effect. Now, how good is this effect? Well, if we scroll down, we can see Flame Geyser, and I might as well do the review for that card now. Flame Geyser, it's 2 damage for 2 mana, which is kinda low on tempo. And it gives you a 1/2 elemental token, so it lets you set up elemental curves in the future. So it is a weak tempo card that supplies you with another weak tempo card that is given to you by a weak tempo card, because 5/4 on 4 isn't great, and you also have Water Elemental in your deck, which is a really good card, and it doesn't require you to play an elemental last turn to get value, and it sets up into all the same stuff, because the guy that discovers elementals is on turn 5, so I don't know. It's just a bunch of mediocre effects in a row, which could make it good, but I kind of think that you will only run this card if you need an elemental on turn 4, and Water Elemental is just so much better. If you had to run one, I would choose Water Elemental every time. Now, Archaeologist. Archaeologist is amazing. This is the card that is single-handedly making the Secret Mage not look like crap, and it's also putting in more work for the Quest Mage than you'd expect. She is a 2/3 for 2 which draws a card, which is great already, and curves into Kirin Tor Mage, who will play that secret for free. And it stops you from top-decking a secret later when you don't want it. And it sets up the bootleg thing from below. She is really good. Might be the missing piece Secret Mage needed. She can also draw Ice Block for you, and that's why she will be in basically every Quest Mage build. I'm not sure about Elemental or Tempo Mage, but I don't even think Tempo Mage is going to keep existing, so we'll think about that later. And finally, we have Shimmering Tempest, the other low-tempo elemental. Spoilers. A 2-mana 2/1 that adds a random mage spell to your hand as a Death Rattle. It is both weaker and slower than Babbling Book, Death Rattle being a slower effect, but it can help complete the quest faster if you run both of them. I don't actually think the quest needs to be completed as fast as possible, though, so I don't like this card. It's an elemental, but I also don't like it there, because the Tar 3-drop doesn't require an elemental on turn 2 to get its effect set up, so between this and the 1/2 token, I would rather have the 1/2 token since it's usable in more curves. I don't like this card. So, my final thoughts on Mage. Despite some mediocre class elementals, I think Elemental Mage could be decent just because of Water Elemental and the amazing neutral cards. But Quest Mage really stole the spotlight this expansion. There is so much you can do with it, and I think there will be a lot of experimentation. It'll take a while for people to get the optimal Time Warp build, but expect to see a lot of them as people try it out. And there are more endgame options than Freeze Mage, and the reward is either the same or better. It's a really good deck. Archaeologist consistently drawing into Ice Block also helps, but at the same time, the lack of Reno means you can't heal after your first Ice Block. So, fighting off aggressive decks with Control Mage will be harder than ever. Archaeologist could also bump up Secret Mage into viability, but I'm skeptical. Tempo Mage lost Flamewaker and didn't game too much. It also lost, let's scroll down a little bit, lost Arcane Blast and Forgotten Torch. Forgotten Torch is really good for like these giant spell combo decks, but it's probably not as necessary if you could throw down Arcane Giants and have them attack, so this won't be missed. This will, but mostly for Tempo Mage. So yeah, Tempo Mage is probably dead. Quest Mage, Secret Mage, one of those will be good, I think. And any rate, playing against Mage and building Mage decks will be really different from previous expansions. You won't see Tempo. Freeze Mage will be there in spirit but look completely different, so I think that's a lot of fun. And that's all I've got. I'm going to make another video with 3 more classes pretty soon. And until then, more next time. Already, I am really hyped for the new set, and I hope you all are too. I hope you look forward to the next video, and I'll see you later. Bye!